In 1990, the Rwandan Patriotic Front, that's the RPF, a rebel group composed of nearly 500,000 Tutsi refugees, invaded northern Rwanda from their base in Uganda. Though there had been historical tensions between the Hutus and the Tutsis, two ethnic groups based in Rwanda, this marked the official beginning of the Rwandan Civil War. The rebel group condemned the Hutu-dominated government for failing to democratize and confront the problems facing these refugees. Neither side was able to gain a decisive advantage in the war, but by 1992 it had weakened President Juvenal Habyarima's authority. Mass demonstrations forced him into a coalition with the domestic opposition and eventually to sign the 1993 Arusha Accords with the RPF. The ceasefire ended on the 6th of April 1994 when Habyarima's plane was shot down near Kigali airport, killing him. The shooting down of the plane served as a catalyst for the Rwandan genocide, which began within a few hours. Over the course of approximately 100 days, between 500,000 and 1 million Tutsi and politically moderate Hutu were killed in a well-planned attacks on the orders of the interim government. The international response to the genocide was limited, with major powers reluctant to strengthen the already overstretched UN peacekeeping force. At this point in history, you would be forgiven to have written Rwanda off as another African wasteland soaked in death and destruction. Rwanda was a failed state by any measure. The Tutsi RPF restarted their offensive and eventually took control methodically, gaining control of the whole country. When the RPF took over, approximately 2 million Hutu fled to neighboring countries, in particular Zaire, which is now modern-day Congo, fearing reprisals. This didn't happen. Instead, within Rwanda, a number of reconciliation and justice processes began, with the establishment of the International Criminal Tribunal, for Rwanda that's the ICTR, and the reintroduction of Gacaca, a traditional village court system. Enter Paul Kagame, the military leader of the RPF and vice president since 1994, who took office upon the resignation of his predecessor, Pastor Bizimungu, in 2000. According to Gatete Ringabo, an independent analyst and human rights lawyer based in Kigali, the Rwandan capital, when Paul Kagame became Rwanda's president in 2000, he inherited a country that had been torn apart by the genocide. To rebuild it, he had to rely on the most uneducated guerrilla fighters and a handful of ill-trained cadets. Even the most optimistic of analysts doubted his chances. But 22 years later, the country is stable, prosperous, unified, and in large part reconciled. Social services such as education, healthcare, housing, and livestock are provided to the needy with no distinction of ethnicity or region of origin, two forms of discrimination that characterized the governments leading up to the genocide against the Tutsi, which Kagame, as a leader of the Rwandan Patriotic Front, brought to an end. 25 years after the genocide, the wounds are slowly healing. Survivors still see Kagame as a guarantor of their existence. He pardoned the perpetrators and set the country on a journey to unity and reconciliation. Kagame has been tough in his style of governance, inflexible on corruption, populism, and divisive speech. Politicians with hate-charged rhetoric have consistently faced harsh sentences and lengthy prison terms. Speech is regulated to prohibit ethnic prejudice, while democracy was trimmed and tailored to the peculiar predicament facing the Rwandan people. A new unified country had to be built with the same people, killers and their victims living side by side with unity of purpose, the betterment of their village, their district, and ultimately their country. Outside of Africa, however, Kagame raises mixed feelings, with human rights groups classifying him as an authoritarian leader who curtails press and political freedoms and presides over an undemocratic nation. International analysts and champions of democracy have not embraced Kagame's atypical approach, often assessing Rwandan politics through a Western lens and thus missing the complexities of governing post-genocide. As a result, they may have missed what is arguably the most edifying case study in national transformation of the last 25 years. Rwandan mothers receive ante- and postnatal healthcare, and maternal mortality ratios in the country have decreased by 77% between 2000 and 2013. Newborns are vaccinated, the cities are clean, and people can walk safely at night. Ministers no longer require personal security details. Your security will be guaranteed like that of other Rwandan citizens, they were told. Some outsiders seem concerned that Kagame has not groomed a successor, and although there are no crown princes in Rwanda, the president has chosen to groom thousands of young men and women to lead the country into the future. The average age of his cabinet is 40 years old, and women make up 50% of the cabinet, 61% of the parliament, and 50% of the Supreme Court judges. Progress is visible. Kagame's Rwanda is still Africa's most inspiring success story, and this is all due to governance, social development, and internal security.